whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So, Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everybody. It's Charlie Lambden here. This is another live stream on Moving Home with Charlie, and I'm joined as ever by the inimitable Alex Groundwater, also known as Housing Stig.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Alex. Bear with me for a second. Let's just explain why I'm wearing this hat. This time last week, almost exactly this time last week, actually, I'd just come off my slot on GB News, where I've been talking about house prices. And I was wearing that black leather jacket I have with the white stripe and a t-shirt. And today, I got the following comment on that video on YouTube. And I just have something to say about it. Trevor Howard 2254 says, "What has this bloke come as? There's a traditional form for a man's attire in these situations. It's rather strict and conservative, but still provides plenty of room for self-expression should that be one's need." Right. Well, first of all, I'm going to get straight to the point. I don't take... it's just, there's something funny about having that kind of advice from a man named Trevor. Not that I've got anything against Trevor, but that's an extremely posh... he goes on. I mean, I actually responded to that, and he replied again, and his reply was one of the poshest things I've ever heard. But so I can wear whatever I like, and the point is that it doesn't matter what I'm wearing because it doesn't change what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm not going to wear this all evening. I'm going to wear this because it's just comfortable.
Not the baseball cap.
Oh, and do you know what this does? This winds up just exactly the wrong kind of people. So there are so many people who couldn't give a stuff that I'm wearing a baseball cap at all, let alone front or back. And then there are people who are really bothered by it.
I'm one of those, Charlie.
Are you bothered by it?
Well, it's very American, and you know my view on those people.
This is purely practical. It just keeps my wispy, thinning, tickly hair out of my face. And you can stick it up your ass if you don't like it.
Oh, well, that's okay. Oh, by the way, Lise, I probably ought to tell you, I'm away from the Spanish today. I'm on a Douro still, same river, but Portuguese, a bottle of the Muros de Vina from Majestic Wine, and very nice it is too.
You told me you wouldn't be drinking tonight. Okay, all right.
I lied.
Listen, I want to have a lovely, relaxed, and enjoyable conversation this evening, but at the same time, it's on a really important topic. And I'm going to start by just mentioning I'm currently reading this book at the moment, and there is a connection to this topic. So just let me say this. So this is an absolutely phenomenal story by Concorde's chief pilot, who became a qualified Concorde pilot when he was 27 years old. I think he was the youngest ever Concorde pilot, and he's culminated as like the chief operations guy at British Airways and was involved in the crash investigation and all that kind of stuff. But what's fascinating about this book, one of the things that's fascinating is that back in the 60s, the Brits, the French, the Americans, and the Russians all were trying to build a supersonic aircraft at the same time. The Americans failed completely and never even got a test flight of their Boeing version. The Russians built one which crashed at the Paris Air Show. And the British and the French collaborated, where the French did the fuselage, I think, and the interior, and the British did the engines. And it just reminded me that, you know, back in the 60s, we were still a global leader in that sort of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just not anymore. I know we still have Rolls-Royce and they still make aero engines, but they've become very much a commodity in airline, haven't they? I know they're doing more stuff, and Rolls-Royce might be doing modular nuclear reactors as well. And that's a whole.
You're very plane focused, because we were also leaders in nuclear engineering back then, and helped the Americans to build their first reactors, and the French certainly learned from us. So I'm afraid, just like the aircraft, we've been overtaken somewhat.
Yeah, and this is relevant now because probably, arguably, the biggest factor for anyone wanting to know what house prices are going to do in the future is to ask, well, does this country have a rapid growth industry or sector that it is competitive at? And I think the British government had zero bids on their green energy.
Wind farm.
I mean, what a clusterfuck. What a clusterfuck. If you wanted a shining beacon of incompetence, brighter than that, I don't know what you'd find. So this comes around to why I think you and I both agree that there aren't any obvious areas that Britain excels at over other countries enough.
Biotech.
Okay, so how does is biotech something that could become a massive employer?
Yes. Yeah.
Massive employer. What, hundreds of thousands of people?
Yes.
Okay, put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. That's an interesting question I'd love to discuss with you, but that's not the topic of this video. But I genuinely would love to, because if you can convince me that's the case, it might make me rethink my long-term future on house prices.
No, no, that's already baked into my long-term case. It won't have an impact on house prices. Certainly not in our lifetimes.
So you and I had a phone call earlier today where I rang you up, and we hadn't spoken for a while, and I was and pissing about the fact that how hard drum and how loudly I scream about what I can see happening at the front line case of housing transactions today. The best I can get, as far as the national media is concerned, is to be called a noisy outlier by a journalist in the Times who actually rang me this afternoon after he. Oh no, my connection. Am I back?
No, you're back. It's just every now and then you're buoying out.
I'm afraid there's zero I can do about it. We're on my mobile 5G, 4G connection. I don't have any alternative until my internet's put into my new home. So I'm just going to push on, and if it becomes unbearable, then tell me. All right. Yeah, I was whinging about the fact that no, even though I've got connections in the national media, and I've been on Radio 4, and I've been on a couple of regional radio stations, and I've been in the Times and the Telegraph and This Is Money. In fact, there's a story coming out in This Is Money tomorrow with a big quote from me, and also Henry Pryor, who's not going to be happy that I'm quoted in the same article as him. But despite my rooftop shouting, the potential for much more significant house price falls than is being discussed is not being taken seriously, right? You're called an outlier. In other words, the consensus must be right. And no matter how many times history teaches us that in these scenarios, the consensus is almost never right. Even though history teaches us that again and again and again, and people know this, they still go, oh, well, everyone thinks that. Literally national groupthink.
Yep.
Right? In property, we're now talking about, and it's everyone, it's journalists too. Because the journalists have to go on the data that they are authorized, or the levels of quality of data they're expected to use, all of which, as we discussed in our video earlier today, are, even when they say, house prices falling at the fastest pace in 14 years, they're still saying, but it's only going to be 10%. It's only 10%, which is less than half of the COVID spike in house prices anyway. So we're halfway down, 5%. So maybe 5% more to go. That's what they're saying in the same story as the headline of Worst
Yeah,
house
yeah.
price life. And nobody, this is what drives me nuts, because it's what's going to hurt people. And it comes on to the question at the bottom of the screen. Nobody is actually going, well, hang on a second, should we at least consider, when I say nobody, I mean no one in the media, either broadcast or print or online media. No one is saying, let's consider the case for a worse house price fall than the consensus is talking about. Let's just, out of interest, there are enough people interested in this, let's talk about it. Nothing. Fucking tumbleweed. No, you're a noisy outlier. You're a nutter with a baseball cap on the wrong way around. No one's going to listen to you. I know. I've just realized how to solve this problem.
Take the cap off. There we go.
No, off. Okay.
Off. There we go.
And then put a tie on, maybe. And then
No, ties. You can't do ties anymore.
So,
I love the cup, though.
Oh, I love these cups. So, the question that's been banging in my mind, and in fact, I've been talking to a publicist who's approached me, and she's the same thing. Okay, I'm getting noticed, and I'm getting invited to comment occasionally, but I'm curiously not getting invited back as often as anyone would normally expect. And so you and I discussed earlier, is it the journalists who are deciding, Dad, don't get him back on here, we don't want to hear about him? Or is it maybe the journalists' bosses? Is it the editors? Is it the powers behind, the behind the scenes powers going, we don't want any more talk about that? And you said, yep, probably that's what it is on the phone earlier. Yep. And so we started discussing, which is the point I want to get to in this conversation. We started discussing, what do those conversations look like between the powers that be, the editors, and maybe between the government and so first of all, do those conversations actually take place? Do newspaper editors trot round to number 10?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that that is without doubt. Senior editors. I have worked for a newspaper, with a newspaper before, and worked quite closely with the journalists and their informatics guys, and also, fortunately in some cases and unfortunately in others, with their editorial team. And they absolutely are treated, because they meet heads of state as part of the whole news gathering piece. It's one of the reasons their buildings have so much security. But inside our government, they go and have briefings and conversations all the time. I mean, access, that's one of the great things about being an editor of a respected newspaper, is that you have access to senior politicians whenever you want. And of course, senior politicians have an agenda, and their agenda ostensibly is, we want to do the best for the country. We want to protect the country. We know that groups of people panic in herds. Therefore, we do not want to panic the people because it will make the situation worse. So could you please, Mr. Editor, do your bit for England, help out, be patriotic, help out. Whether you like us as a government or not, you must accept that riots in the streets are not where we want to go. So please help us to help the people, and just don't publish that.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
okay, Mr. Minister, I hear your request, and the newspaper that I'm an editor of, the readers of my newspaper think you are a prize plonker, first of all. So why should I do you any favors? And secondly, you're asking me to conceal the truth?
No,
because you're saying it's for the greater good. You're saying don't tell people how bad it's going to be.
It doesn't matter what your readers think of me. This is not for my benefit. You're not doing me a favor. You're doing your readers a favor.
You don't do anything for your own benefit. You're a politician.
Well, all I'm telling you is you can believe as what you like, but you know for yourself that if people panic and therefore they panic sell or they reduce prices, it will cause a cascade in the market. You know that.
It'll make homes more affordable for everybody else. Why is that a bad thing?
Well, it is a bad thing because we have a lot of older people in this country whose wealth is entirely tied up in their properties. Not only that, we have younger generations who have buy-to-let properties, which they still owe a lot of money on, because I understand you're going to tell me the older people have no mortgages and therefore they will be fine. But there's younger people who you want to look after, and we certainly want to keep in jobs. We want to keep productive, because you know what the GDP figures are like. If we don't keep these people productive, We are going into a recession, and that's bad for you and the country.
So what you're saying is, it's going to be bad. You just don't want to tell everybody.
Yet. And by the way, you say it's going to be bad. You have no evidence. You have no proof of that. You are extrapolating numbers that you have in front of you. I have the Office of Budget Responsibility. I can get their numbers, and they'll tell you something entirely different. What I'm asking you to do is not to spread what we might regard as propaganda, because you have no hard evidence. So when it is absolutely clear and apparent to everybody that these numbers are accurate, if they ever prove to be, then by all means, you will have our blessing to publish. Although we hope you will handle the topic with sensitivity, given how many people will be hurt. But right now, it is basically tantamount to treason for you to publish something that you cannot prove that might startle people into an adverse reaction.
I don't need to prove it. I just need to say that I'm talking. So there's this noisy outlier. He's just some YouTuber who reckons that he's going to be much worse. He thinks it's going to be 35%.
That's absolutely fine.
He's back to the and he's saying that there's a time lag. And we've got evidence today, Mr. Minister, that Halifax a year ago mentioned nothing about house prices fall. And then this week they come out and say house prices have fallen 5%. Surely they knew that a year ago. If they know it now, then what do they know now? So
let me reassure you. Let me reassure you. That noisy outlier, the one we call Baseball Cap Charlie, we have a service who are going to deal with him. I don't think he'll be noisy for very much longer.
You're going to a whole dark area now.
No, the point is you are at the moment an outlier, so you can be disregarded as far as both the government and the mainstream media are concerned. Is it wrong? Yes, there's a journalist who you should speak to, who champions a lot of things, including the people who are locked into the mortgage people who are locked in after Northern Rock. I can't remember what they call them. The trapped mortgage people who are now fixed on
prisoners. Mortgage prisoners.
Yes, right. Well, he works for the Yorkshire Post, and he will write absolutely anything that he believes to be true. He does not give a flying fuck about following a narrative, and his editor allows him to do so. We talked a lot over COVID, and he's a really good guy.
Well, if I was a conscientious journalist who cared about my readers and I came across some noisy outlier with a little bit of credibility and a bit of data to back his views up and 25 years experience to back his views up, I just want to dig more. I'd want to go deeper and go, oh, let's just hear him out. And then maybe do a story and go, well, there is this guy. We're not saying we agree with him, we don't agree with him, but here's his explanation for why he thinks things will be much worse than the consensus is saying. I think that would be doing people a service without spreading panic. They can still.
Charlie, I agree with you.
Yeah,
we were just playing the roles there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the conversation you and I had is well, hang on a second. And you said you'd rather get, as a punishment, if it's coming anyway, you'd rather get a punch in the face than a slowed.
God, yes, every bloody time. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Now,
I remember.
Can we do? Is there a way of doing an objective numerical analysis of which one does cause more harm to more people? A sudden sharp fall, which has deep, profound effects but allows recovery to begin sooner, or a longer, slower slide because people don't believe house prices are going to fall very much, so they're not panicking.
Yeah, I mean,
how can we do those numbers? Because
I sort of did it last year, actually, which is why I came to the conclusions I came to. I didn't complete the model because, unlike the house price one, it's really fucking complex. But I saw enough. The problem that you've got, if you do things quickly, if things crash as fast as is humanly possible, as you say, you have then an opportunity to recover. It's horrendous for a group of people. But because businesses can survive a certain period of time, you don't destroy that many businesses. So less businesses go, which means less jobs go. What you have is a very short, deep impact. So the people that get wiped out get bankrupted. They get wiped out completely. I mean, they're homeless. They're completely screwed. Whereas in the longer term, what happens is you keep sucking in more and more people, because as we stop spending in the economy and people start spending their savings, what happens is a larger pool of people then have no money for when things get really bad. And so although you have potentially fewer people who are brutally wiped out, what you have is a much larger group of people who will have lifelong implications for their wealth, housing, and so on and so forth. More companies will go bust in the longer duration slide. When you can't survive, most companies, certainly most individuals, only have a few weeks of savings, despite what your followers on Twitter suggest. And that's, 33% of people in the country, I think, have less than a month's worth of savings. So businesses are not that dissimilar. They lived on credit for so long. Yes, they can survive a certain amount of time, but not 2 years. And what's happening now with the slow interest rate rises, I know people will say, yeah, but Jesus, we've had 14 rises on a trot. I mean, they've been going up and up. They could have been going up by 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%. But they didn't want to do that because that would have shocked the hell out of certain homeowners, and they really would have got repossessed then, and it would have been a lot of pain for a small number of people. But this slow progression means that more and more companies are going to get caught up when they refinance, because we're going to have higher interest rates for longer. And so the damage is worse across it. The old analogy I used to use was, you've explored the Antarctic, you've got sepsis in your big toe, you can chop it off right then, or you can wait. And if you wait, you can survive on the morphine. The pain will be okay until it's at your knee, and then it's at your thigh. And then you go, but I can't stop this. I need to actually chop the whole leg off now. And so it continues. And we are just getting sicker and sicker as a nation. It would be much better to amputate in the first instance.
Well, I haven't done any numerical analysis of this, but my gut feel is totally agrees. Whatever's coming, can we get it over with, please?
Yeah.
Because the waiting and not knowing and the uncertainty is like death by 1,000 cuts. Because everybody wants to move on, and you can't move on if things are gradually getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Everyone's waiting. Everyone's waiting. If it's bang, done, over, no one's waiting. We are where we are. You can get on. Because you've got that indefinable and unquantifiable thing called certainty, or at least less uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly. Less uncertainty.
So I think on the phone just earlier, we agreed, you and I are in agreement that the more people who think very, very carefully before moving, so both on the buyers and seller side, the better, because every single day right now there are people buying and exchanging,
yes,
who are going to regret it because they will have overpaid, because they haven't heard anyone like us talking about it. All they've done is heard what the industry guff.
Russell, Henry,
Russell
so
Clark,
many lovely
Henry
people
Clark.
talking utter bollocks.
Yeah, exactly. They'll have heard all of those and they think, oh, I've done my research, looked around, listened to a few different people. They all say it's coming down a little bit, but it's not going to be. They all say it's okay. They all say everything's fine. We should go ahead and buy.
I think David has got a very good point there. He's not wrong. Although 8 pints, that's not very many, David. It's like having 8 pints.
I don't know what you're reading. Okay. Oh yes, David McKenzie says it's like having 8 pints and waiting to be sick. Just stick your fingers down your throat. Yes.
100%.
So I'm frustrated because, I mean, having said that, this week my YouTube channel has actually smashed its record figures. I mean, at any point around the clock at the moment, there's at least 2,000 people watching my videos, which blows my mind.
Really?
I'm getting
Oh, you're going to have such a big head soon.
No. I what I only care about is the message reaching more people. That's all I care about. So that people can at least consider. If someone hears what I'm saying, considers it, disregards it, and goes ahead anyway, well, I tried. It's like best of luck. But I worry about the people who haven't heard anyone say this, which is most people.
No, I mean, you've got two sets, haven't you? You've got the people who are thinking of selling, are in the process of selling, who believe that they've got the most wonderful property on the face of the earth. And
Yeah.
you've got a bunch of buyers who, for whatever reason, whether they can't put up with living at home anymore, whether they can't afford the rent anymore, whether they've just got a promotion, just got married, want to have a baby, need a bigger place, whatever it may be, these people have to buy, or they feel that they have to buy right now.
Well, so, this I understand. You've been saving for a long time. You're finding a position. And it is true to say there are people who could buy now who, if they wait a year from now, may not be able to get the finance that they need.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's my belief, is actually we will hit a point where you're screwed if you do and you're screwed if you don't, because prices have come down, but they're not lending you the money because you're not a 999% Experian credit score. They're going to be very, very careful about who they give money to.
Yeah, it is true. If you're a buyer, the first time I'm watching this and thinking, oh, hang on, might I miss the boat? Yeah, you might. Because if things get bad, lending criteria is going to get harder and stricter and tighter, and you may not get the finance offer that you're currently able to get now. And so what would I say to people in that situation? What I've always said, buy now, but just make sure you don't overpay. I've done loads of videos on that, how to offer, how to negotiate, that kind of stuff. Just make sure you're not overpaying. I agree. If owning a home is an important life step for you, because family reasons, whatever else it might be, and you're in a position to get to a home now, do it. But just, it's not easy. And I've done lots of other videos. And in fact, I will do a fresh video about how to negotiate properly, how to make your offers, and how to give yourself the best chance of a low offer being. I had a one-to-one video call with a chap buying an apartment in London. He said, it's an amazing apartment. It's my dream first home. Been saving for years. I want a 20% mortgage. 20% deposit. He said, but I just feel like it's about 10% too much that I've agreed to pay. And I said, well, okay. How does that play out if it goes bad? Could you withstand the worst case scenario if it comes down 20-25%? And he said, well, do you really think it could? I said, I don't know what your kind of property in that kind of area is going to do.
Exactly.
I can't say that they're going to. So I don't know. I said, but what you've got to do is ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? And would you be okay with it? Let's say prices come down 20% and you lose your job. Just consider that scenario and ask yourself, in that scenario, what will you wish you had done? Will you wish you hadn't bought it? Or will you wish you just haggled it down and got a lower price? Or will you be actually, no, I knew this was a possibility, I'm going to write it out. And any one of those three things is the right answer for you personally, if that's what your choice is, That's what I always say to people. Yeah. Well, Nikki Knight says, stop worrying about people. No, that's all I worry about. They made their own beds. This is an interesting point you make here, Nikki, because the fact is there are people who are better equipped at making decisions than others. Through no fault of anyone's, there are people who life has not given them the skills and experience and wisdom to be able to make good. No one makes bad decisions on purpose, right? No. Everyone making these big decisions does it because they think it's the right thing to do.
And some of them will make very good decisions about fields that they are experts in. But that doesn't mean that everyone is an expert about buying and selling houses.
No, exactly that. And I've had people having one-to-one videos with me ranging from nearly £3 million about to buy a place for nearly £3 million with exactly the same worries. Down to 1/10 of that. And I do worry about people, Nikki. I don't know what else is worth worrying about other than that. It's like,
pangolins. I'm serious. I'm very concerned about pangolins. We keep stealing their scales. We're utter fuckers. I'm actually less concerned. I'm Team Thanos. I'm less concerned about humans in general, although I am very concerned about the number of poor, impoverished children that we're going to have in this country in the not too distant future. Fortunately, we don't have that many children anymore, so there'll be less of them.
Well, what I worry about and what I care about and what pisses me off and what motivates me to do this is the people who are being avoidably and unnecessarily fucked over. People who are not equipped to see it coming and are being exploited and taken advantage of for the benefit of those who do know better. That's why, I feel those of us who have got the knowledge, the experience, whatever you want to call it, to call out what is basically, frankly, bullying. Oh, it's just business. It's just business. Well, I have a serious feeling that, if you think that just business means it's okay to fuck over innocent people, then you're as someone mistyped it, a C-nut.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a good question. TW has asked on YouTube, Charlie, do you worry if after all this, ...
You were wrong. Dun, dun, dun.
I tell you why I don't worry about being wrong. First of all, because I'm not.
That's my line, you fucking thief.
Well, it's my line too. Snap.
One time we were wrong, but it was all right. We were mistaken. Yeah.
But here's the serious answer. Even if I am wrong, and all I've done is made people rethink their decisions more carefully and be doubly sure before they proceed, but it doesn't go down as far as I'm expecting to, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst? Seriously, if you're wrong, and therefore by extension, I must be wrong, having done all those lovely calculations. If we're wrong, and for some reason, let's say biotech, we suddenly expand our capability. We employ lots of people, and we build manufacturing sites in special zones that have been set up. That's Quasi really wanted to do. And we employ lots of people in these plants, and wages actually go through the roof. And not only that, Putin decides that Ukraine, that's all fine, and we have no wars there. The world decides that actually oil isn't all that bad because we use it for everything, and maybe natural gas is really acceptable, and we probably don't have to go electric for everything immediately. And not only that, we'll build some nuclear reactors that'll employ some people, and wages go up, and house prices, because they are still going to go down, because we still haven't felt the full impact of all of the interest rate increases. And because wages are not currently, although they were rising at the fastest rate in recent history, are not continuing to rise. So there will still be a decline in house prices. Now, if someone were to say, oh, yeah, but I'm not going to buy until they've gone down 30%, because Charlie said so, and they only go down 20% and start going back up, at that point, you and I will sit on this video channel and go, do you know what? I've had a look at wages. I'm afraid we fucked it. For some unknown reason, it's all going to be great. The UK industry has picked up and it's fantastic. If you guys, you better get in there now, because if you wait too long, house prices will be 30% higher.
And for the same reason that I saw this coming before anybody else, I will also see when it turns before anybody else. I will hear from the front line of a state agency. Suddenly, the phones are ringing. Number of buyers registering has gone up. Number of viewings being booked has gone up. And that is about a 3 to 6 month leading indicator of an actual improvement at the front line. Because, that doesn't turn into transactions and higher prices straight away, because there's still quite at that point when the bottom happens. And remember, the bottom is different everywhere. When the bottom happens, just like when the top happened, I saw it. It was the best way to describe the moment of when the top happened and it wasn't the top anymore was like when you watch a firework, a rocket, right? Someone lights it, it goes, and then it runs out, it goes, and there's a silent bit. Still going up a little bit, but it's lost its thrust, and you know it's coming down. That was the bit I heard. I heard the firework go out in February 2022, which when I did that video said, just think we might be about to see something change in the market. And so for the same reason, I honestly will be the first one out here telling everyone that buyers are back.
Yep.
The buyers are back. The agents are busy doing viewings, which means that 6 months from now, we will start to see official house prices start to rise.
You've got Albert there. Albert's funny. Albert, you and I don't know each other, but I
Sorry,
am not.
one second, Stig. Just 1 sec. So, TW, the answer to the question is, do I worry if after all this I was wrong? No, I don't. Sorry, Alex, back to you.
He's made a number of comments, but the one I like is, you will be trapped in your bearishness. Albert, you don't know me, but I am never trapped in bullishness or bearishness, and there is no influence that works on me. I literally only look at data. So
Yeah,
if I see anything move,
I don't recognize Albert. I don't know if you've been on these live streams before, Albert. But it's interesting that you think that we won't see the bottom.
Because we'll be trapped in your bearishness. No, that's not the way it works.
I will see the bottom on national average. Do for a living and have done for 2.
Yeah, that was really bad.
Guys, have I lost you?
You boinged and
back?
boinged. Couldn't hear you. No, you're back, but we missed all of that middle bit.
I'm back. Okay, I just said basically the reason that I will see the bottom for anyone else is because this is what I do for a living. I provide estate agents with the technology that they use to register buyers, to book viewings, and to put offers in. So I see that happening. No one else sees that happening. Rightmove doesn't see that happening. Right? Even Rightmove doesn't happen. Zoopla does, because Zoopla owns CRM software like the stuff that I've built, or my team has built. So I will see it. I will. All right. Well, so what do we do? What do you reckon? How do we get journalists to at least consider the
Well, you won't. I mean, the reality is, as I said,
defeated.
No, journalists will not. Individual journalists, with the exception of my man at the Yorkshire Post, will not go against their editors. It's that simple. Journalists don't earn enough to have fights with editors. The only journalist who would is somebody really famous, 65 years old, has been at the Financial Times for 35 years, and actually the editor is a little bit in awe of them. And they can basically write what the fuck they like. But they're never going to write a story that scares people because of the very reason that they believe that they are helping and doing their patriotic duty. So the answer is, you will come to a stage where it is undeniable that house prices are falling, and therefore they will be allowed to write softer stories, and you will be in demand for that.
So what you maybe want to do, because I love being told, no, Charlie, you can't do it. It's just nothing fires me up more than being told I can't do something. I'm going to find an editor and pitch the editor directly and say, tell me why this isn't a good story worth writing.
Well, I can give you Ruler's details.
I'll take them all. I mean, I know I've got direct contact with some of the editors, the property editors.
But it's higher. It's higher than them. Those are not people who go to see the politicians. You actually need to speak to not even the managing editors, because they don't get any editorial content. You need to speak to the actual fucking editor. Oh, that's very good.
Cormac says on YouTube, journalists will pay more attention to Charlie if he escaped prison by hanging under a food delivery truck.
I had a friend from rugby this morning ask me if I was actually hiding the escaped prisoner, because he's come from Wandsworth and they think he's in Richmond Park. He's only round the bloody corner.
This is a serious question. Aurelio S says, but they love clickbait articles that scare people usually.
Yeah, well, no, you see, it depends. They do, but only if the scare fits the narrative. So the classic one was COVID. The reason I started, I never read the mainstream media, so I never had a problem with the mainstream media until the whole COVID thing. And then I was doing stats because I was so angry about the university modeling. It was so poor. You know, they were claiming there would be potentially 4,000 deaths per day when there were actually 235 at that point. It was with Omicron. And
Well,
I couldn't understand it.
The point you make is relevant to the comment on the screen now. Sir Fleshmorph, what a fantastic name. Sir Fleshmorph on YouTube says, you are confusing news and opinion. Papers do report the news, like biggest fall in 14 years. What they don't do in the news is make predictions that the future will be down. That's opinion. Well,
Yes.
in the example you just spoke about, Alex, the newspapers were reporting that 6,000 people a day are going to die from COVID.
Well, no, of course, they use the always get out of jail free clause, which is the University of Warwick and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine have modeled that the minimum death rate for Omicron will be 2,000 per day, up to, X that. And I did my own model. And I looked at that, and then I noticed that they were publishing stories that said 70% of people in hospital are unvaccinated. Now, that number was wrong. It was wrong. They were using the wrong data. They were trying to claim that 7 months of data was 7 days of data. And I told them, and I eventually got them to change their stories. Although they didn't publish a retraction, all they did was change the online versions of the stories, which no one was ever going to read again. And it was at that point that I realized that these people are not dumb. You know, I've met them. I've worked with them. They are bright people. They will follow whatever guideline they are given. Although was it Fleshheart? It is absolutely right that they will publish fact and not opinion by and large, unless they can pin it on someone else. But even the opinion, they will follow the party line with whatever the editor wants.
Another fantastic name on YouTube, Sharktastic. No, Sharktastic, sorry. Sharktastic. Sharktastic.
Yeah, you were all upbeat, and actually he's just sarcastic, but with teeth.
Sharktastic. Why should we expect the decision makers to not kick the can down the road again? E.g., cut rates shortly, deepen the acceptable indebtedness, and keep inflating asset prices. Good question. Why won't they keep on going?
Because hyperinflation is no fun for anyone. That ends with children making kites out of money and then people getting shot and building camps. It's not fun.
Children making kites out of money.
That's what the Germans did.
I didn't know that. It's just a great story.
They literally glued banknotes together to make kites because it was cheaper than buying kites.
I love these little vignettes you have. Okay, so I want this conversation to have accomplished something. I'm going to try and approach property editors and ask. Sorry, I'm eating whilst talking. Sorry about that. Approach property editors and try to get them to get their managing editors to say that it is in their readers' interests when they're facing one of life's biggest decisions to consider all scenarios, all plausible scenarios, and noisy nuisance outlier Charlie has just such a scenario with some data to back it up. We should hear it. So I think probably it starts with me actually writing it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, fuck. That means I have to do some work.
Look, you are bloody work shy, you are. Oh. Driving, no issues. Rocking up and talking, also very good. Actually doing some work, nah. You have developers for that. Can't you get your Portuguese guys to write it for you?
You bastard. Right. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to this? Otherwise, I think any more good questions here on this topic. Otherwise, I am going to wrap it up because I've got a horribly early start tomorrow morning.
Well, where are you off to?
I want to take my daughter to her drama class 2 hours away.
Oh, God. Yes. She's in Annie, you said.
She's in Annie.
Fantastic.
It's her first role. Yeah. She's 8 years old. She's absolutely loving it. And I promised her when we moved house, I said, first thing she said was, what about if we move too far away? Will I be able to? I said, yes, we'll get you to.
You've got to drive all the way back to where you were.
Every week for another 6 weeks. No, we've got to go past it. We've got to go past it, actually.
I take it you're videoing.
No,
Not for public consumption, but I assume you as parent will actually video a show.
I mean, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to
No.
video shows other people's kids in. I mean, it's.
You're kidding me. Is that the world we've got to now?
I think so.
That's
I
mad.
think there's sort of unwritten rule that, you know, if you can, but you can't obviously put them on social media.
No. I wasn't suggesting you would, but there is a question here from Richard Hem. Hello, Richard.
Where is it?
It's about interest rates for companies.
There it goes. So Richard Ham says, Stig, has the business community made the noise about interest rates over the last 2 years, e.g. a collective group or petition? In COVID, they made a big noise about lockdowns. Are they now? Particularly SMEs.
Not that I've seen. I mean, I've seen a number of, you get those stupid emails, never ever give money to charity. As soon as you give money to charity, they email you about fucking everything. I have seen, I did give money for the pangolins though. Love the pangolins. I have had a couple of emails about SMEs, but it's not about interest rates so much as just access to credit, and they want petitions signed so they can be heard by the government. But no, I'm not aware of any big thing. And to be honest, I mean, SMEs are getting screwed in terms of access to cash. The big corporates still seem to be fine in terms of being able to negotiate being given loans, but they are at much higher rates. So we will see it shortly, I'm sure.
I'm going to take this one last question, and it behaves. Jackie Chandler on YouTube says, why is there zero coverage of the price drops on Rightmove? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Jackie, the reason is because I don't think most people want to hear it. It's as simple as that. It's the same reason why they don't want me on TV saying house prices are falling. Nobody wants to hear it. Like
La.
No, look, there's some flying pigs. Let's talk about anything but falling house prices. I mean, this is what we were talking about on the phone today as well. People I know, people I love, people in my family, close friends. There are people who've put their house on the market to sell, knowing what I do and haven't asked me about it, and they've tried to do it without talking to me. And I don't understand it. And of course they've turned up, they've gone out and they just put it on too high, not understanding the fact that will mathematically, with mathematical certainty, will reduce the amount of interest they get.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't know why they don't want to hear it, but they just don't want to hear it.
They certainly don't want to hear it from you.
Well,
it's a baseball cap. Now you've taken it off. I'm actually beginning to believe that you are a man I should respect much more than I do.
let me rectify that very quickly.
It's better. I feel so much more comfortable now. It's weird.
Everybody,
Charlie, you are going to be getting calls, be it now or just before Christmas. Actually, probably just before Christmas, when everyone's doing their shopping, which incidentally they no longer do in December. For the last 2 years, the big spike in credit cards is November because everyone's doing it online. Mm-hmm. Even after COVID finished, they were still doing it online, which means probably the whole Christmas market has changed. So in November, when credit card spending goes through the roof and people can't afford stuff and it all goes pear-shaped and retail sales are down, they will say, Mr. Landon, how do you fancy coming on BBC? We've got is it 10 o'clock news now?
Yeah.
At 10 o'clock news, we'll have a slot. If you could just spend 2 minutes explaining what you believe will happen to house prices. And if you wear that baseball cap, I will buy you dinner.
Hey guys, should I wear the baseball cap if I get onto BBC News at 10 or not? It'll be fun. Right. I'm on empty. Got to go to bed. Got to have an early night. But it's been fun as always. And thanks everyone for watching. Please keep on spreading the news, basically. Please, if you know people who are selling or buying, ask them if they've heard about the stuff I talk about on this channel. And if they haven't, suggest that they check it out. Send them a link to whatever you think is the most useful video that I've done that would help them, just make them think twice. Lots more coming soon too. Otherwise, guys, I do need to take this opportunity as well. A couple of comments here. Nick Woodward, the jacket. Thank you very much, Nick. Someone whose YouTube name I'm not going to read out says, "Evening, Charlie. Appreciate your shout out." There's your shout out.
Slice of toast. Carry on. Can we get slice of toast in there when he's back?
Hang on. Where is he? What's he saying?
Oh, it was one of the first comments about pharma. He worked in pharma in the 90s and 2000s. My only answer, Mr. Toast, is it's personalized medicine that makes a difference. Like all biotechs, things will grow and go bust really fast in about 0 to 9 year cycles, but it's going to grow and grow as personalized medicine takes off. That is the thing that will be key in this country.
Right. I want to finish up by saying this, because I know I've got a lot of new followers in the last couple of weeks. If you are buying, the way to make sure that you're not overpaying is by making sure you have the best possible chance of your comfortable offer, comfortable to you, i.e. low offer, being accepted. And the way that you do that is to make sure you got your mortgage in principle, make sure you have proof of your deposit funds, make sure you've got a conveyancer already lined up, ready to go. And when you make your offer by email, never over the phone or in person, but by email, say, and if the seller chooses to accept my offer, I will order the search packs today. Because by doing those 4 things, you are ruling out lots of the doubts that sellers have about buyers' offers. Okay, so make sure you got a mortgage in principle, conveyancer lined up, and your proof of deposit funds. Because if you put all of that across with your offer, even if your offer is slightly lower than someone else who hasn't done any of that, your offer is going to be seen as a more credible one and will improve the chances of you getting a property at a better price. If you are selling, and by the way, if you need to know where to get any of that, you need to go to a URL, which is MHWC, this one here on the screen coming up now, mhwc.co.uk/all-my-ducks, all-my-ducks, or individual/mortgage/conveyancing and /property pack. But lots of you are doing this, and thank you very much. Every single day I'm seeing guys using these links and making sure that you've got these things. And I'm getting great feedback that it did actually help and it did put you in a better state. It costs you nothing, by the way, to do these things. You're going to have to do them anyway. Just bear that in mind, right? You are going to have to get a mortgage offer. You're going to have to get a conveyancer. You're going to have to pay for a property search pack. And you're going to have to provide proof of deposit funds. So given that you're going to have to do all 4 of those things anyway, why not do them up front, which I guarantee will massively increase the chance of your lower offer being accepted and therefore reduce the chance of you overpaying. If you are a seller, I just implore you, do not overprice your property if you need to sell, because you'll look back months from now going, why didn't we just put it on a more realistic price?
Can I say it, Charlie? The new syndrome.
Of course, yes.
If you're a seller, don't suffer from Munchausen syndrome. We have such terrible conversations when I'm drunk.
Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah, that's where you damage yourself by believing that your baby is more special.
Yes, you heard it here first, guys. Munchausen syndrome, which is it's a mutation of Munchausen syndrome.
Yes.
And we're experiencing something of a pandemic of this amongst sellers at the moment.
We are. They are harming themselves, potentially catastrophically.
Yeah, harming themselves by believing, no. I know what my house is worth. I know what I want for my house. I know what it's worth. We're going to be fine. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it there. Have a great night, everyone. Have a great weekend. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Night. Bye-bye.